Hello, good afternoon. Are you a member?
And you'll never
That's
let
part,
go.
like,
She posed for Playboy.
that right there is crazy. Knowing how strict her dad was and how they was conservative, and then post with Playboy. I mean, out of 9 kids, you can't expect all 9 to be SS. Somebody gonna be outside the box. You know what I'm saying? And she, look at her. She married that dude? What the hell? Oh my gosh. You on the run.
How good was the Michael Jackson's brothers and sisters?
The Jacksons are arguably the most successful music family of all time.
Wait.
All 9 Jackson kids had solo hits on the Billboard.
What? You know all of them?
I get the
That's
brothers
the dad?
confused. That's Joe Jackson.
Oh, he didn't look
That's
as
the
scary
mom.
back then.
That's Michael Jackson. That don't look like Jermaine Jackson, but that's supposed to be Jackson. Then it's Rebbie Jackson and Toya Jackson. I know it's Jermaine Jackson,
Damn, bro.
Tito
They
Jackson.
all the same parents?
Yes,
She
same mom,
pushed
same
up
dad.
all these?
Yes.
Oh,
Damn, why all of these? These. What you mean? Oh, grandma had 18.
who's this?
Michael Jackson.
So who's this?
No, that's Michael Jackson. That's the young one. That's damn, what's the young one name? Is it not T? What's the young one name? I get all of them.
The
confused.
most successful music
That's
family
Michael.
of all
That's
time.
the young one that come out.
All 9 Jackson kids
Yeah.
had solo hits on the Billboard charts, but only 2 are still a household name. And I bet you can't guess which one actually beat Michael for the #1 spot on the R&B charts.
Janet.
In this video, we're gonna find out just how good Michael's
If it
brothers
ain't anybody
and
else,
sisters
it's
really were.
Janet.
Not as good as Michael, of course, but nobody was. What were their strengths? What were their weaknesses? And how successful was their career? And naturally, we gotta start off with the second most famous Jackson. 100 million records sold, 10 #1 singles on Billboard,
I said it.
Rock
If
and
it
Roll
ain't
Hall of
nobody
Fame.
else, it's Janet Jackson.
Janet is the only one who built a career you could put in the same conversation as Michael's. But here's what people don't know or don't remember. Her first 2 albums actually flopped. Her debut album came out in 1982 when she was only 16. The album sold 250,000 copies that year, and her single Young Love peaked at 64 on the Hot 100.
Young Love.
It wasn't bad, but with Joe Jackson as her manager,
Look at this kid.
it wasn't the kind of numbers he was used to.
What's wrong with his feet?
2 years later, she tried again. Her second album was called Dream Street, and it was produced by her brother Marlin, who we'll get to
Oh yeah,
later.
Marlin Jackson.
It peaked at 147 on the Billboard 200 and never produced a Hot 100 single, worse than the first one. By 1985, Janet was 19 years old, and her career seemed like it was over before it even started. So she made a decision that changed everything. In 1985, Janet
left
terminated
the whole
all
team.
business affairs with her family. She walked away from Joe's management and hired an A&M executive named John McClain to take over her career. And John McClain introduced her to 2 producers who, at the time, nobody had ever heard of yet.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis.
They're incredibly talented, incredibly creative. So it wasn't just taking a
They
Minneapolis
all
sound,
got
but
that
also
soft
bringing
voice, yo.
the Jimmy and Terry feel to that, and me bringing my own little thing to it. It helped to create a sound of my own.
Janet, Jimmy, and Terry recorded Control in just 6 weeks. It debuted at number 84, but it climbed to #1 and it sold 250,000 copies in 1 week, which was a record for a female artist at the time.
250,000 copies in 1 week?
That's what he said.
That's first week sales?
In 1 week.
People not even doing that now.
It produced 5 top 10 hits on the Hot 100, and the album eventually sold 10 million copies worldwide. And then she did it again.
10 million copies for how much dollars?
I don't know.
How much albums used to be?
Back then, I don't know. It's different now than it was back then.
Back then? How much it used to be?
I don't remember. Oh, albums?
Yeah.
You know, back then we used to buy CDs and actual vinyls, and there was way more money than downloading.
How much?
Sometimes that thing be like 15, 18, depending on the artist.
Rhythm Nation 1814 was #1 on Billboard for 4 weeks straight. And then it did something that no album had ever done before. 7 top 5 hits on the Hot 100. Rhythm Nation is the only album in Billboard history to pull that off. Then in 1991, she made history again. She signed with Virgin Records for a contract that made her the highest paid musical artist in the world.
Jeez.
The sources say that the
Wait,
deal
so
was
she
around
had more bread than Michael Jackson?
She was getting up there.
It made her the highest
Yeah, the highest.
million
He said,
in the world.
So Janet was and still is pretty damn good, but she did have some weaknesses. See, Janet never really had a powerful voice, which is probably her biggest weakness. In an era when Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey were blowing people away, Janet was never really gonna out-sing them. But Janet's strength
Man, she
was her
outdanced them and all
breathiness
that stuff,
and
too.
her sweet tone, which gave her this extra level of sex appeal.
A lot of people feel that I'm sexy. I think that's a compliment.
And Janet's biggest strength was the fact that she could outdance the singers with the big voices. Whitney could outsing her, but Whitney wasn't going to be doing a Rhythm Nation choreography in a military suit.
I remember that shit. Hey.
Now, Janet is the obvious one who made it to superstar status, but Jermaine is the one who a lot of people forgot came close. 16 charted singles on the Billboard Hot 100, a Grammy nomination, a decade of top 30 hits. He was the only brother besides Michael to build a real pop career. And for a few years in the early 80s, he was genuinely in the conversation. Jermaine was the second lead vocalist of the Jackson 5. His voice wasn't as powerful as young Michael's was, but he had this warmth and richness to his voice which helped to balance out some of the songs. His first solo single came out in 1972 called Daddy's Home, which hit number 9 on the Hot 100 and actually sold 1 million copies. But then in 1975, the split happened. The Jackson 5 decided to leave Motown for Epic Records. They were fighting over royalties and they wanted creative control. But Jermaine stayed because he wanted to stay loyal to the owner of Motown, Berry Gordy. Plus, he was married to his daughter. So now Jermaine is alone at Motown with the
That was
solo
Hazel
deal,
Gordy.
but the problem is now he's got to stand on his own 2 feet. But after the split, his first 3 solo albums, they all flopped. His choice to stay was looking like the worst decision of his career. But then Stevie Wonder called.
Don't wanna believe what they're telling me.
In 1980, Jermaine and Stevie Wonder made a record called Let's Get Serious. The record got Jermaine a Grammy nomination for Best Male R&B Vocal Performance. But the most surprising part, for 1 year, Jermaine actually took the top spot from Michael. In 1980, on the Billboard year-end R&B chart, Let's Get
You was
Serious
wrong.
was number
And I thought it was Janet.
1, and Rock With You was number 2. But it didn't stop there. Through the early 80s, Jermaine kept charting with multiple hit singles. And in 1985, he helped produce Whitney Houston's debut album. But as pop and R&B music started to change in the early 90s, Jermaine wasn't able to evolve like Michael and Janet did. In 1992, his album You Said flopped completely, and his mainstream solo career had never recovered. So Jermaine's strength was his warm and silky tone, arguably the best singer after Michael in the group. Also, he developed music production chops, and most people forget, Jermaine was a hell of a bass player. Now, what Jermaine was bad at was range. Not just vocally, but his ability to keep up with the change in music taste. And then come to think about it, even all the way back to his decision to stay at Motown, I would say his weakness is just change in general. He decided to stay at Motown where he was comfortable, even though the writing was on the wall that it was time to move on. When you hear about the Jacksons, you almost never hear
sister.
anybody mention Rebbie Jackson.
Rebbie Jackson.
She had 2 top 10 hits on the R&B chart,
Yeah, we
a
barely
gold
hear about
certified
her.
single, 4 studio albums, and almost nobody outside of dedicated music fans knows her name. But what makes her career even more unique is she actually didn't want it. Rebbie was the oldest, and she spent her 20s and 30s being a mother while her brothers became the most famous group in the world. But in 1984, she caught the Jackson bug and released her debut album.
Why did it take you so long to get around to doing all of this?
That's a question that everybody asks, and
They all
I
got
guess the best way to
soft
put it
voice. I love it. They all have the soft voice.
is that I got married in '68, and I was busy with my family. And even though I've always
busy with my family.
It's
Do your
so
parents
proper.
talk like that? That's probably why.
And
enjoyed music. I never thought about going into it on a professional level.
She was 34 years old, which is not typical for a debut artist. But when Michael Jackson is your songwriter and producer, you can't lose. Her single Centipede hit number 4 in the Billboard R&B chart and number 24 in the Hot 100. Plus, it sold over 500,000 copies. She followed it up with Reaction in 1986, which hit number 16 on the charts. Then Are You Tough Enough in 88, with the single Plaything hitting number 3. So things were looking good for Rebbie, but it was a little too late. She did one more album in 98, but by this time she was almost 50 years old, and a solo career just wasn't important to her anymore. And it's hard to say what Rebbie's strengths and weaknesses are because I don't think she ever really wanted to be in the spotlight. She married her childhood sweetheart, she had 3 kids, and just wanted to live a quiet life. So I guess I would say her strength is being a wife and a mother. And I think that's just as valuable as being a pop star any day. Toya Jackson was the first Jackson sister to go solo. She's probably known as the most unorthodox Jackson.
Get your hands on a LaToya, and you'll never let go.
She posed for Playboy. She married a shady businessman with ties to the mafia who coerced her into marriage.
Wait, go back.
And she was the most out businessman.
Yo,
and you'll never
that's
let go.
like
she posed for Playboy.
That right there is crazy. Knowing how strict her dad was and how they was conservative, and then posed for Playboy. I mean, out of 9 kids, you can't expect all 9 to be SS. Somebody gonna be outside the box. You know what I'm saying? And she, look at her. She married that dude? What the hell?
What the hell?
Out of all men that was
Playboy.
out there,
She married a shady businessman with ties to the mafia who coerced her into marriage. And she was the most outspoken about the family and things that happened behind the scenes.
We always had to smile for the cameras whenever we were on television or taking pictures and pretend like we were this loving, perfect family. However, at home, it was quite different for us.
As far as the music goes,
she was the one
numbers
that was
from her early.
She was the one that's gonna tell it. She was
telling all the business.
What's what you call it? What's what you call the sister that's out there to tell everybody stuff? What's the
Brother?
Yeah, she was the bro of the crew.
Career are better than what most people remember. 9 charter singles on Billboard. Her debut single, If You Feel the Funk, hit number 17 on the dance chart. By 1984, LaToya had a top 60 Hot 100 hit and 4 charted R&B singles.
Nah, they always hard.
Which is
though.
actually more traction than most of her brothers had at the same point in their career. She was on her way to building her own music legacy. But then she left Joe's management and everything fell apart.
So they all just used their real name as the stuff. They never had, nobody else had.
Everybody, Jermaine Jackson, Janet Jackson, Michael Jackson.
It should have been the same story
Tito
as
Jackson.
Janet, but LaToya didn't hire a professional manager and 2 high-level producers who played with Prince. She hired a criminal businessman named Jack Gordon, and then she married him.
He literally said, I'm going to kill you, your brother, everybody.
Yes. No, not everybody. Just myself.
And Michael.
Michael and Jan. And I believed him. I believed him
He one
because
of the top
things
ones.
that I had seen from being with him.
By the mid-90s, she had filed for bankruptcy and became trapped in her marriage. Jack became abusive and obsessive and exploited her for quick money.
Wow.
And he forced her to do projects that she didn't really want to do.
Wow.
Now, luckily, LaToya finally divorced Jack in 1997, but 10 years of her career was gone. But it's not all bad because she eventually pivoted to reality TV, and she did that for most of the 2000s and the 2010s. And now she keeps busy by promoting health awareness to her fans as she focuses on her own health struggles. But now, if we're looking at it from a purely music and talent perspective, LaToya did have some hits, but she's probably the weakest singer in the whole family. But it's kind of like that saying where you shoot for the moon and you'll be amongst the stars. She's the weakest one, but in a family like that, I mean, she's still talented.
People have a tendency to compare you because you come from the same family, and they expect for you to be like Michael or have the energy that he exerts out to the public. And I don't feel that that's fair because I do what I do and he does what he does well.
Marlin was probably the hardest working Jackson. He wasn't a naturally gifted singer, and early on, he wasn't a good dancer either. And he struggled to keep up with his brothers. Michael was a
Moving
prodigy,
forward.
but Marlon had to work
Them
twice as
falls
hard
and
just
all
to
that
stay in the
stuff,
group.
got his ass
That was
kicked.
ancient history. Then is then, and now is now.
But by the time the Jackson 5 reached their peak, Marlon had become the group's main choreographer. Michael is known as one of the greatest dancers in pop music, but Marlon was the one designing a lot of the moves in the early years. And he had some nice moves himself when he went solo. Started songwriting and producing, and in 1987, he went solo with his own album, Baby Tonight, and his lead single, Don't Go, hit number 2 on the Billboard R&B charts. Now, the album had a lot of hype, and he had a deal with Columbia Records, but in the end, the record only sold about 200,000 copies.
Only?
Instead of following.
There's people that's not doing that right now.
No.
We're streaming.
For real? They're
Bro,
not selling 200,000.
They can't even crack
copies?
100K.
You lying.
What you mean?
I ain't been paying attention
Only
to
people
it.
that's doing that is Playboy Cardi.
So a lot of the big
Uzi
rappers ain't even cracking that right now.
No.
You right, because I be seeing academics go in on them.
It up,
like 70K.
Marlon just walked away from music. Now, sometimes he still tours with Jackie as the Jacksons, but his career as a solo artist, it never went past the hit single.
If I had to live my life over, I would.
They used to be
do it
so
the same.
fun back then.
You're endless.
They
You
had
see
that
endless
look that
possibilities.
girls would die for back then.
That's
Like,
for anybody in
girls
the
went
world.
crazy
It's
for
your
them.
mind. Whatever you want to do. You see something you want to do, you can do it yourself.
Now, compared to Michael and Jermaine, Marlon never really developed a high-level singing voice, but his biggest strength became his dancing. He became the third best dancer in the group, and in a family that includes Michael and Janet, it's pretty impressive.
They all look alike. Look.
What's this about?
Look, he dancing. They right in front of him. Yeah.
When the Jackson 5 started in 1965, Randy was only 3 years old. He grew up
That's the
watching his
last
older
one.
brothers on the
The
sideline.
one you asked me who was the last son, it was Randy.
The whole time, he was still practicing.
Wait, let's go. Wait, he said when it came out to what?
Jackson 5 started in 1965. Randy was only 3 years old. He grew up watching his older brothers on the sidelines, but the whole time, he was still practicing. And by the time he was a teenager, he could play piano, percussion, bass, guitar. Randy did a lot of writing on their albums with Epic Records, and he got nominated for his work on the Triumph album. And in 1989, it was time to do his own thing. He wrote and produced all the tracks himself, and the lead single, Love You Honey, started gaining traction and hit number 16 on the R&B charts. Now, Randy's band was signed to A&M Records, but there was one person standing in his way.
I remember this
Rhythm
show.
Nation came out the same year as Randy's album, and the company was focused on Janet's rollout. On top of that, A&M Records was being sold to another company at the time, and the label was so distracted with the transition that nobody wanted to put the necessary marketing push behind Randy. The album came and went. Randy and the Gypsies, they broke up and never released another solo project. But the saddest part of Randy's story is he didn't get inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with his brothers. Only the original 5 members were inducted. On the bright side though, Janet and Randy are really close, and Janet made him a partner in her record label, Rhythm Nation Records. But as far as his solo career, he never really had a chance. But if I had to guess, I don't think Randy really has any regrets about taking a back seat so his sister could go on and be a superstar.
Look, that's them.
When Tito Jackson was 10 years old, he got caught playing his father's guitar. He broke one of the strings.
Got his ass whooped. Which one here?
Broke the string of my guitar.
And when Joe found out, he demanded that his son play for him. Tito played his ass off. First of all, to impress his father, but he also didn't want to get a beating either.
Tito said I was playing it, and he was crying at the same time. So my father said, well, show me what you know how to play, this and that. And
Joe was so inspired that he told Tito, Jackie, and Jermaine to form a group. Not only was the guitar Tito's strength, he eventually became a highly respected player in the blues world. For the next 40 years, Tito was in the group, on the tours, in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but he didn't release a solo album. But by then, every Jackson had done at least one solo
He the one that
project,
passed away.
even Rebbie. Tito said that he wanted to focus on being a father and a husband, so he put off chasing a solo career. But one day, he was watching basketball, and the commentators made some Jackson 5 jokes that pushed him over the edge.
Well, listen, let's be realistic. The Miami Heat are Michael Jackson, Dwayne Wade, and a bunch of Tito Jacksons. They're not very good. Tito was probably one of the least influential of that group, would you say? But he's got the best name. Tito was in the back of the background sometimes. He won the greatest group and the greatest group of all time. Right, but it was Michael and Jermaine, then Marlin and Jackie, and then Tito was in the back. Jermaine, it was Michael Jackson.
Little did they know, Tito was watching. And that's what finally got him in the studio. Tito Time came out in 2016. He was 63 years old, but the lead single Get It Baby with Big Daddy Kane hit number 20 on the adult R&B charts. The single did something else too. It was the record that completed the Guinness World Records for the whole Jackson family, the most siblings to have solo hits on the Billboard charts. In 2021, Tito released his blues album called Under Your Spell. And the feature list alone shows you how much respect Tito actually had in the industry. No matter what, some retired NBA players respect Tito
Stevie Wonder,
Marlin Jackson
actually had in the industry. No matter what some retired NBA players had to say. But sadly, while he was working on his third album,
he passed away.
Tito passed away in 2024 from heart complications. He was the last Jackson to go solo, but without Tito, we may have never known about the Jacksons at all. His solo career was short, but he was a great father and a damn good guitar player. Jackie Jackson was the athlete of the family. He really wanted to be a basketball player, so music was just a backup plan. But with Joe Jackson calling the shots, music was the only plan. Jackie had the lightest natural voice of the brothers and took on the falsetto notes. And he was a really good songwriter. He co-wrote Can You Feel It? He wrote Torture on the Victory album. He had songwriting credits on all the albums with Epic Records. But one thing he didn't have was much of a solo career. Jackie released his first solo album in '73 on Motown, but it never charted. And he wouldn't release another record for 16 years. In 1989, he put out his album Be The One, and the single Stay did hit number 39 on the R&B charts. But he never got the same attention as his brothers or his sisters. And the main thing holding Jackie back was the same thing that was his strength. But it only worked in the confines of the Jackson 5. But Jackie is really important to the Jackson legacy. He became a consultant for the Michael Jackson estate. He works in the production with the Michael Jackson Cirque du Soleil show, and he still tours with Marlin as the Jacksons. So even though he didn't have much of a solo career,
they still tour?
He's still working to keep the family legacy going, and not letting the Jacksons just
R&B never dies.
As far as
pop, R&B, all
do you
those
have
things,
some
they
other
don't
things
die.
that you guys may be working on?
Yeah,
and
we got new music coming out very soon. Oh yes, we do.
That's right. And we gonna come and blow this joint up if
Let's
y'all don't
do
play
it.
If y'all don't play it.
Every Jackson sibling had at least one moment of stardom, and almost none of them get remembered for it. But it's kind of hard when your brother is the king of pop. And not only did the Jackson family live in Michael's shadow, but a lot of artists of today live in his shadow too. Watch this video on the screen next where I cover how almost every modern artist has taken inspiration from Michael and how he inspired the
There's
direction.
no next
Who do you
Michael
think
Jackson.
is the closest?
I mean, the closest to me is Chris Brown.
Chris Brown?
That's his closest. And you know what? He still got time. As long as he alive, he still got time to be the next big thing, like stamped for real. But they be hating on the kid off of one mistake he did, and they won't give him his flowers. But Chris Brown, if you see this, I give you your flowers.
I want y'all motherfuckers to subscribe to Foreign TVO. Don't give a fuck. Better subscribe, motherfucker. If not, security gonna get your ass. Pup, pup.